Howdy, folks. Welcome on back to this episode of Style Zephyr and Style Zephyr HD. Thank you so much for tuning in. So much going on. And we've got something a little bit new going on right now. Style is all encompassing. So while we've talked clothing, we've talked cigars, I've got an amazing guest with me today. We're going to be talking jewelry and all things involving the art, the craft, and the science, and family history as well. Mr. Ryan Riek is with me. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me on the Zephyr today.
Hey, buddy. Glad I wore my black shirt. I feel like the designer already. Thanks for having me.
You're all right. Everything blends, the facial hair and the
Goodness gracious.
yeah, it's
Represent a local restaurant here. Shout out to Arizona. Mexican food, delicious. Wild, Wild West. Great plate.
after the quarantine I need my fix also, so I'm gonna be finding a place around Chicago too.
It's going to be good.
So yeah, we're gonna be talking jewelry, and this is something that I know nothing about, and it's something that there's symbolism behind it, there's craft behind it, I'm sure there's science behind it, and I'm sure it's like finding an ant on your countertop. Whether there's one, there's more. If I can learn something, I'm sure a lot of other folks can too. If we can start it out, introduce yourself, and I guess kind of what got you started into the industry or the craft or the trade.
You bet, buddy. You bet. So once again, and like I said, buddy, thanks so much. My name is Ryan Riek, and it's like two first names. Yeah, buddy. And so I have the diamond jewelry industry. I mean, goodness gracious. How can you kind of give you the Reader's Digest version? I mean, obviously, I think jewelry to everybody has some form of connection. Well, let me just take that back. Actually, not everybody's into it. Not everybody wears it, has appreciation for it. But it truly is all part of history, like anything that's made it through the years of a gesture, symbolism, any gift giving. I mean, all the mile markers to our life that society has built through years, birthdays, anniversaries. So, how do you take this big giant world of jewelry and industry with everybody's used for fashion and as a business, as opposed to, like you said earlier, to the science behind it, to truly creating it, to its long journey. So, where do you really start? Tough to say, but it's still very impactful, and it still very much has a presence in our society, which I think is extremely important. It has value in it still, extremely, whether it shifts or trends in certain directions. And it's a wonderful business. The nice thing about it, which a lot of people I think sometimes don't realize, is, it's a love business. It's a business of love. When you enter that arena of giving somebody that has meaning, it's usually because there's some deeper connection there, and it's just one of many symbols that does it. Just like flowers, or a Britney Spears CD from 2002. My date's correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So,
like you said, I was gonna say, like you said, two first names, as my great uncle would say. Are you a twin? Because no one person can be that handsome. There's got to be another one of you somewhere else. That's my great uncle, and we're not there yet. Maybe one day. Cool. I mean, yeah, there carries a lot of emotional weight to it, and it's just like it is actually, like you said, flowers have their own weight to them. Suits are kind of the same way. Like, especially we've had a long conversation about suiting, and first of many more. A lot of gentlemen will tend to even get into bespoke suiting as an heirloom itself, and if their son or daughter doesn't, ideally in this case a son, or if a lady gets herself a bespoke suit, maybe one day it's like a wedding dress or like a tuxedo, it gets handed down to other generations before, as someone else may have worn it for their wedding. Maybe someone else, a friend of mine from college, got married in her mother's dress, and that's kind of like for that. Because I think you've mentioned family.
I'm sorry, I was just saying you're hitting the nail right on the head. If I know where you're going with this,
Sure.
It's in that same category. And to be quite honest with you, that's even impressive. I never even probably thought of the suit, because traditionally in my line of work, which I call the wedding mafia, everything from photographers to florists to venues to tabletop services. I'm connected with all these people. And you even mentioning that's what's one major area between the bridal wedding shopping and shopping for the dress and things like that, because you're kind of part of that journey as well. And a lot of them do get like passed down, whether they think it's fitting or not, that they wear it for their theme of the wedding. You hit the nail on the head. But actually, I never even heard of really suits though. That's wild. I never really
Oh
heard
yeah.
men
Yeah, I
suits.
mean, as long as you got a good enough tailor to, you can only take something in as much as you can and take it back out if you're a little bit more portly, or a wider seat, which is polite tailor talk for you got a fat ass. So that kind of thing. Or even a fedora. My Stetson is on its stand over there. A good properly built fedora can last 120 to 150 years. So
Cool.
if you can't find, if you find your grandfather's, fedora from 1945, go for it. So when it comes to the actual craft of it,
Sure.
with everything that inspires folks and kind of lights that wick, so to speak, and ignites what actually drives you, if it's compulsion or family, what got you started into it? Was it family? Was it career? Was it science? What started it for you?
Yeah. So I think the path was pretty organic. When you hear family, I didn't follow in the family's footstep by any stretch of means, and I really shouldn't use the term family. It was actually just my father who spearheaded himself in the industry in the mid to late '80s and just positioned himself in the right area. He was a big supplier rep wise, so he was like any other representative. Like you'd sell, microchips back in the '80s to technology companies, or this gosh dang water mug. Literally, you could go to stores and companies, businesses, and sell piles and parcels of bigger stones, little stones, just like a regular diamond rep. And just like any other hustle or any other business, you generate clientele, you build relationships, you do follow up calls. And through time, it becomes like a regular service. You become like a diamond guy. So it's no different than any other career. We were blessed to be through a very booming time. And, by the time I got older, I realized, how successful he was. I probably worked my way into some, early 20 years and didn't say anything yet like, well, I'm going to be motocross professional, or I'm going to,
Mhm.
work in a factory or do this or be a heart surgeon. Those things never really occurred. It was hanging out with great guys like you, communicating with people, and I just needed to find my niche. I loved the business because it was not stress free, but it kind of is. When you're sitting down with people and someone says, "Listen, I'm in love," or at least I think I'm in love, or this is my 10th time in love. I know but you got it open. But aside from that, there's also other business end of it. There's major jewelry repair, there's buy, sell, there's trade. And then you get into kind of the gold market side, which people invest in, and things like that. So, um, once again, buddy, I kind of hit a couple of areas, during this journey, but that's kind of how it all started. I probably didn't really calculate the truth of my life until I was 29, 30, and said, you know what, this is the direction I want to go in. This is the person I want to be. This is the man I want to be. And this is the future I want to create. Not until about 29, 30. Make a long story short, I got my feet wet in the retail business. You may have heard of Hellsberg Diamonds. Over 300 stores nationwide, maybe 8 or 9 people in the stores, depending how big it is. But I was getting my feet wet. Customer service, getting antiquated with, the terms and the knowledge, picking up certificates and degrees along the way, and building my gemology knowledge and things like that, so that I just wasn't thinking about selling and earning 2% commissions on sales, at the corporate ladder, making 12.50 an hour. That wasn't the end goal. I use it as a lily pad to go to jump to the next place. And then from there, as you possibly know, sometimes hard work creates opportunity, people, conversation. And sure enough, I got a tap on the shoulder in regards to owning a store that was getting ready to retire or close here in Phoenix. And I knew that was my calling. I knew that was my knock on the door. And probably like most people, that could be fearful, scared, or unsure. But when the bite's there, when you know it, you bite into that son of a gun, and you never let it go. So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those things where I'll kind of tell people, because I've traveled a path, but it's not a road yet, but you got to kind of forge that. I mean, look at Chicago potholes. that shit doesn't get fixed very quickly. So, you got to kind of fill in the gaps and everything as you go along. But it is one of those things where I tell people, and even my first high school, I was kind of like impromptu asked to do like an entrepreneur class. And I was like, does that mean like you want me to teach or you want me to sit in it? And it's no, we want you to teach. I'm like, whoa, you want what? Like you mean I might actually have a diploma from being at the school? Like what does that mean? I was a dumb kid. I was not a bad kid. I was a dumb kid.
On
But
purpose?
no, but I was a young kid. It's a long story. You could talk to my therapist about it.
You
But
didn't pay too much. You just didn't. You just weren't for school, maybe.
I didn't do my homework. I didn't do my homework. At that age, there's girls. You're looking at girls. There was
Yeah,
at that age there was WWE No Mercy was on Nintendo 64 and then PlayStation 2. So my priorities were elsewhere. So kind of like that. But I asked the teacher, like they actually on the spot, because I needed to meet, I needed to have been introduced to this teacher anyway. And 5 minutes left of the class, and he said, "Do you want to say anything?" I said, "No, I wasn't ready. Like I didn't." But he's like, "Oh, please, like we've got like 2 minutes before the bell." Okay, fine. I said, I looked at him, and there was like a good. These are high school kids, like juniors or seniors, and I said, I looked at the teacher. I said, "Can I curse? This is the real world." I said, "Can I curse?" He goes, "Yeah." And I looked at everybody. I said, very first thing I said, guys, I said, no textbook. I said, your textbooks are going to cost a lot of money. Not a single textbook will have a chapter labeled relationships, kindness, and give a shit. Because no one's going to give a shit about you if you don't give a shit about yourself and providing for other people.
That's fabulous.
And,
Home run, and that's a home run in that class.
Oh man, I think I rambled for about 2 more minutes before the bell rang, and then I remember the teacher because I was wearing one of my three pieces at the time, and it had some pop going on. A couple people were like, "Hey, sir, like, we really like your suit." I was like, "Hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time. Here's your homework assignment. Email me or give it to your parents. Have them email me."
Well,
But
that was a standing ovation too, right? As you walked out.
one young lady I overheard say to the teacher, she's like, "Can he come back and do that again because he's really good?" And I was like, "Well, this is the real world, sweetheart." But I mean, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, it is taking that risk, and when you know that you have that care and that audacity in the stomach for it, because too many people will hit a roadblock and will kind of start like complaining about it. It's like being back in college and complaining on Facebook that you have a term paper to write. Like, just do it. If you've got the energy to just complain, start doing it.
I'm going to tell you a real quick one. I'll try to do this under 2 minutes. I told you earlier in the career, in order to get my feet wet, I worked at Hellsberg Diamonds. And I think if anybody is pursuing any type of career, start thin if you can. There's no road that ever made it, right to the top. We all know that, and I'm not trying to sound cliche-ish, but anyhow, the jewelry business is a very much dress-up business, especially, okay? And when I mention retail stores, whether they're a corner plazas or they have their own stand brick and mortar, or you see four of them at the corner of a mall, or anything like that, to all Illinois people at Oak Brooks or the Schomburgs, whatever. There's a lot of these stores out there, right? And these are some hardworking people. Some people make a good living in these stores. And you'll be surprised. People would be surprised the type of numbers in the business all these locations do. But anyhow, it's been policy for years and years. When you're going to go in there spending $5 or $5,000 or $10,000, the person behind the counter dressed very nice, and they still do. So I probably cycled through 8 suits and a bunch of colored shirts. I had always been in a professional business. Over the years, I collected quite a few, 3 or 4 pairs of shoes, and blah, blah, blah. But you talk about people's impression of dressing nice, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Now, I was a guy who actually, for 3 or 4 years, I was walking into a mall. In a mall, there's a lot of people. And usually in malls, with a lot of people, there's food courts and things like that. Well, on a Saturday, I looked like $1 million walking in there at, I don't know, a 1 o'clock shift to 9 o'clock shift. And it was amazing, and you could do it, and of course you think you're the man because you're looking sharp and you go whatever. You might even walk through the place with your shades on. Okay, you might even walk through the place with your shades on. That's how cool you're feeling. Anyhow, one day I get to a door, and no joke, and this kid, probably about 13 years old, he runs up to me. He goes, "Excuse me." So this kid ran up to me. He goes, "Excuse me, sir. Excuse me." I said, "Yeah." This kid stopped me. He goes, "Are you a millionaire?" all from just walking into my 12.50 an hour job at Hellsberg Diamonds, getting my feet wet in the business, but looking like $1,000,000.
Mm-hmm. That's we no, it's all good. We digress quite a bit, but it's Edward Sexton is one of my favorite designers. For perspective, for people that like music, and if you've ever heard of a little band called the Beatles, they mostly performed out of garages. If you've ever heard of them, but for example, the Abbey Road. He and the late Tommy Nutter designed those suits, and he said once, like, you'll have people like Rupert Murdoch and all these multi-millionaires or billionaires walking on in. You can have people just walking off the streets. Maybe you quit smoking and you wanted to treat yourself after saving your money, and you wanted to buy something nice, and you have people who will be willing to spend that kind of money on a better suit because they look the bollocks and they know it. So, as I always tell folks, because most of the time it's always someone who says, this doesn't fit right or this doesn't fit right. You know what? You're perfect. If you're worried about something not fitting you, that's because it doesn't fit you. It's our job to make that garment fit you because the garment's not perfect yet, because you are. For getting into it, like because your family had already kind of been into it, and just whether it was fate or however you want to say of how events kind of unfolded before even having started the business, but just learning and kind of grinding your teeth. Is there like a textbook education, or like how would it go about, like an organic experience in building your rapport and just knowledge base? Is there
get into it? Maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, you can't study it on the internet. You can't read about it. It's a physical property that has to be looked at. And depending where your head is, where your heart is, and where your money is, you'll determine how important knowing that stuff is. If you want to get into the business, I would have to say getting into the kind of the retail side of it, if you could work for somebody. Probably I say more of the retail side, because they're probably structured, specifically, and you just a little bit more textbook. Might keep you grounded in between lines, as opposed to, maybe more of an independent private side. Although I do have a store location, but do they need to learn all my tricks, right? Sitting next to me. I mean, the answer is yes, because they're healthy and they're positive and can show you how to run a business and do things like that. Absolutely. But sometimes there might be just easier boundaries to work within for some people that might be understanding. So I would actually maybe say a retail job, a retail position of some sort. I'd be discounting the industry if I said there was just some cheap. I mean, people could go to Gemological Institute of America. They're probably the most profound, dominated, credentialed industry, or not industry, but organization in our industry. They oversee everything from stone grading to gemstone grading. So when these get shipped either from Israel or other places from the country, they go to these certification companies, these buildings, these places of business, and there's thousands of employees. They work up there, and they grade everyone's diamonds on a personal level to a business level. You could go to their training. They train people for months. You can go to their school for, I think, 3 months, a month, 6 weeks, 6 months. It's like a university. You can go. You can get that under your belt and then decide where you want to take your career. Like, oh, I got my diploma. Now which way am I going to go? Some people are craftsmen. Some people are jewelers. They're goldsmiths. Those are the real bad boys of the industry. Okay? That's the dying breed. That's the art. That's the other avenue which we could also get into, whether it's fashion, whether it's diamond grading, whether it's retail style. I mean, you and I would sit here for 3 days really reviewing any facet, no pun intended, of the industry. But at the end
I
of
have a
the
lot of bandwidth, so we can if we really wanted to. It's all good. And I'm to make this not timeless anymore. I am on furlough, so I've got nothing but time.
no, I like it. I like, this is, my kind of first podcast, and I'm really glad that you stuck to it. But um, even I like to get out here and rehearse and try to connect with people in different ways. So I'm glad forced me to, get off the couch and stop eating Tillamook French vanilla ice cream with chocolate syrup on top.
Oh shit, that sounds really good.
It's the best.
See, this is why I really wanted to buy myself a Cuisinart ice cream maker for my birthday, and I didn't, because all I wanted was some chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream.
You're gonna go hard. If you gotta go hard, you're gonna go hard.
Man, you owe me a watch now. Anyways, I can edit that, but
Actually, before you do say that, I will give a shout out to Skywatch, to my buddy Gabe out there in California, who we buy and sell. I sell them from the store. But you know what? I'm going to show them to you, skywatch.com, and you might want to check it out and see what you like. It's a dive watch, and he kind of mimics the $5,000 watch that guys supposedly dive in, and go hunt for sharks. I mean, I don't know too many guys that wear their $5,000 Breitling, right? But this is a dive watch. It's priced from $295 to $495, just for the regular guy that works hard every day, and then every once in a while goes into a dive bar. And that's what we're gonna watch. Great price point. It's made out of
yeah. Oh man, no, I'm gonna do. Oh god, and I'm sorry.
The band is made out of sailcloth, like a boat sail.
Oh.
Yeah, see, there you go. Now I'm talking your language.
Well, because a friend of mine the other day asked me, because I posted up some images on social media. The theme was concept to completion, and I had the lookbook, and then I had the sleeve with the surgeon cuffs. I'm throwing terminology out there, and a friend of mine reached out to me and said, when can you provide me that texture of light blue, white window pane on his jujitsu gi? I'm like, I don't think 100% wool versus a multi-layered cotton on a gi will provide the same kind of. If it was Brazilian jiu-jitsu and you're tearing shit apart, then that's oof. But it's like, well, I'll find you a good dye sublimation process and we'll get something worked out for you. Man, so yeah, I'm gonna bypass commercial because this is a really juicy episode. So when you to kind of like go back a little bit then in terms of the point where you started to open the store.
Sure.
By
the way, I did leave a huge part out, by the way. So I kind of got a little.
Okay, go.
My story. Yeah, no. At 33 years old, I was tapped on the shoulder from my father, right? And he knew a lot of other local businesses and dealers and players in town that had stores, little stores, big stores, suppliers. You just kind of like everybody else. You just kind of eventually know the people in your industry when you've done some business. Here in Phoenix, Arizona, there was a store opened up called the Jewelry Replacement Source that opened up in 1994, and it was for heavy insurance claims. So here's a perfect example. You go to Hawaii, you're surfing, your wife comes out of the ocean and her ring is missing. It's gone. Lost, stolen, or damaged. I'm in the business where it happens. Unfortunately, people put claims where, oh my God, my house was robbed. $10,000 worth of goods, $30,000 worth of goods. It doesn't matter. I've got some pretty scary stories up from customer sleeves, from just really those unfortunate. So unfortunately, there is that side of the business I do it, where you do insurance claims. State Farm will call you, American Family, say, hey, listen, our customer put a claim in. We need you to either replace, fix, do whatever, and obviously try to get them back whatever the damage was done. So I do that. That's how that originally started. The Jewelry Replacement Source is how that had started in 1994. It became so successful that the owners started actually just putting goods and merchandise in it. So when people would come visit them, they could then actually kind of buy merchandise. Oh, it's an anniversary, our 3rd-year anniversary. I want to get my wife a pair of diamond stud earrings. You know what? My necklace broke. I was playing with my 2-year-old and he pulled on my chain. Happens all the time. Constantly do those repairs. Oh my gosh, I've had this ring. It got passed down from Aunt Edna. She passed away at 88 years old. It's not my style. I want to take the gem out, recreate it in something else. All these different requests were coming in aside from doing the insurance claims. Husband and wife team. From 1994 till 2012, they ran a small independent store. It was open to the public, but it had a private feel. When they were getting ready to retire 16 years after having that business, I was given the opportunity to continue to run it, buy it from them, and continue it. The only reason I thought it was a good idea is because it was going to be easier for me to take over a 16-year-old business than try to start Ryan's Diamonds or Ryan's, although it sounds nice ring to it, but why try to start something new when I could take something that was 16 years established, right? It just seemed like an easier transition. It had a theme, it had a name. I gave it the shot in the arm it needed. When these lovely people retired at 60, my mentality at 33 was different. A little hungry, juicier, generational change, shift, see things differently. How can I incorporate technology with the changing times, with the business, and how can I make the connection? And here we are now, and this is my 8-year anniversary. And I'm a full-on diamond bridal jewelry service house, you name it, buy, sell, custom. My claim to fame is about 250 engagements a year. So every 3 days I sit down with a couple, him, her, him, her, they, and they construct or navigate their way to the symbol of getting engaged and them deciding that we're going to spend the rest of our lives together of some sort. And eventually I find out if they make it or not. That was the jewelry joke.
No, I got
I'm trying not to be serious by any stretch of the means, but it's actually a wonderful industry, and you're constantly dealing with these people. But they're usually in a good mood and say, "Hey, I love it. Don't get me wrong, I'm on the other end." And she says, "I can't stand this SOB after 8 years," or "This happened to me, and it's time to cut ties, and I need to sell my ring." And so sometimes you unfortunately have to go through that.
Absolutely. And that was, I was going to there was a perfect segue and then kind of more or less answered it anyways. But in regards to, because again, like we've touched on that idea of these are all about relationships. And just like I would say to that class, and I would say to anybody still even at U of I, and these poor kids who call me from University of Illinois, like, Mr. Quinn, can we have $100? No. Can we have $50? No. But I gave him $50 eventually, but he really grounded for it. But the relationships and sitting down with folks and developing that rapport, and for what people want, what is a consultative kind of experience like? What should people kind of like? How should they conduct themselves to getting in touch with folks? What would they expect in terms of the introduction to it? Because it's just like suits. If you see something that looks expensive, typically a lot of folks just assume that it is. So I come in as that really cool middle class, blue collar, working class guy and saying, well, let's knock down the elitism, chill, let's relax, let's talk first, let's break it down, let's kind of what's for what, and let's take the elite out of it. Let's take, because one of one, that's luxury. That's exclusivity, is one of one. But it's not about, as I would tell people in the shoes and clothing, you don't have to pay $1 million for $1 million experience. For jewelry, slightly different. So if someone wanted to actually sit down, what would the experience kind of entail?
Sure. So right before that, I think a lot of people have made their mind up. I'm not handy until people have consciously made the decision and say, I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to go in this direction. I thought about my money. I thought about my future career, whatever. Goodness gracious. What was the second part you said?
Basically, so what would that approach
Sure, right.
to you, and then the consultative process?
Where I was going with it is I think usually you can know a little or you can know a lot. Right? And I think just either prior to coming in, you get up, well, you just do. You ask the questions, but I'm not asking any of the diamond questions first. It's, I want I think I've always looked at it like this. Money, money is really important for people. And one guy said it best, it's even emotional for us in many cases, right? And so I've been blessed to find a balance in salesmanship, in the business, in relationship building, like you and I always talk about, to find out where all that stuff hits. Who is this person, that this is a big commitment, you know what I mean? Like it's, we get nervous sometimes as people, or do people really ask men, hey, what do you go through before the societal, model of you've been with her for 2.5 years or 4 years or 6 years, or when are you going to pop the question, like, I don't know how much societal pressure is coming from them or their family. And so I think it's important that you make them feel relaxed when they're there. And if it matters to learn about the shapes and the quality and things like that, do it. If it's strictly, hey, I'm supposed to do this, but I have got X amount of money and they're stressed out about that, you diffuse that. And so you just, like most things that most people know, you just listen as well as you can to accommodate that. And what's great about me shifting old sales techniques versus new one is now, when you eventually know what you love that you do, you allow them to navigate you to where they want to be, if that makes sense. And I used to not behave that way. Old sales renditions and trainings and programs was forced for the dollar. And it's all true. Those things that you've read or learned from these other smart entrepreneur people, and they say when you're not thinking about the dollar and you're doing it with true compassion, and they know.
Mm-hmm.
People know when you care, and they know when you don't. And so whatever your goal, whatever your one thing is, I think for people, and jewelry, running a jewelry business is no different. Whether it's a jewelry repair, right? Listen, there are people that bring in things they've spent thousands of dollars on. And then there's people that have had this chain for 18 years, and you wonder how it's still hanging on their neck. But it means all the world to them. And if it's a $10 job, you'll be surprised how far that goes with people.
Oh, absolutely, and it's
I get veer off. Sometimes I veer off with your questions. So I hope I.
no, it's all good. It's like we've talked about with shoes and whether it's an heirloom or not. If I just think a lot of times, in my overall opinion, I think most guys hate shopping because number one, they don't like. Most people just don't enjoy the process of the going out and looking and trying things on because especially now because there's so many different fits. Like I mentioned, I won't say the name of the company, Amazon. I bought 2 new pairs of jeans. It was out of necessity. I don't care about Prime. I can live without it, whatever. But I dabbled in slim fit, and I thought, like I've got some really killer high top sneakers. These darker fade, cool shirt. I'm gonna have a jacket made, cool go out look or like casual, like go to work wear, whatever. Just smart business casual, and like a higher level, some accoutrement to it. And but they're slim fit is the point. And when you might go to a department store and there's straight slim, boot cut, straight, 5 or 6 different cuts, and there's maybe extreme slim skinny, slim inside out, slim with it has a bottle opener on the bottom of the cuff. Why do you need one at the bottom of the cuff? Because when you have your leg out and you're smoking a cigar, so you don't have to take your keychain out and pop the bottle open. We just went into business together. But did we just become best friends? Yep. When you get so inundated with options, when you're not even quite sure what you want to begin with, it's bringing it back and saying, well, what do you like? Let me suggest this. We'll try it. If you're not a fan, maybe if you think it's too snug, now let's try this. How does that? What? And it's not being, condescending. It's not being pushy because I've worked with other associates who said, Kevin, would you, like you said, pushing and forceful. Like, would you ever tell somebody to buy it and tell them that they looked good even if they didn't? I say, no. Like, no, absolutely not. I wouldn't. Like, well, what do you mean? For me, it's all about the sale. And I said, it's a lot more costly for me if I tell them that they look good in it and then they get home and the family, or more importantly, the wife or the mister or whomever, says they look terrible, and then they bring it back and return it because they don't feel good about it. I said, I would much rather, that makes me look bad. It makes me feel bad. And then it costs me money in the long run. So I would much rather just be honest and say, you know what? I'm going to tell you, but at the end of the day, your word is what's most important. So, I mean, and even then, in terms of like subject matter expertise, that's something that obviously, like, I would say, like, that gets conveyed to folks, like the education and everything.
Yeah, no, I think there's some there. I get a lot of gentlemen, well, I get a lot of just couples or individuals. They like to learn about what you've probably heard of the four C's, and certain quality grades. There's a very basic, Reader's Digest version of Diamond Shopping 101. And a lot of people read some of that, very sometimes opinionated reviews on looks and styles. And sometimes, and I've shared this with all of my industry people, just decide who you want to be and stick to it, because there's so much other noise going on that it actually distracts people. Website after website. You can't figure that out by looking at it online. People can't know what the suit looks like until they have you fit them and try it on. The diamond and jewelry business, especially in the engagement ring world, oh my gosh, when someone drops $200, 2 grand, they're coming into my establishment or others' establishment, and they're putting an effort in. And they're putting an effort. They might give you a small description of the plan, the theme, anniversary, birthday, quinceañera, you name it. um, a push present now. Hey, we're having a baby. The greatest thing in the world, the hardest working thing for 9 months. It's a beautiful thing. And I love it. I thank them for coming. It's just an extra wonderful gift in the business for people to, show their love, affection, or in my case, sometimes even spend some money on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's actually they're absolutely top secret, unless you buy something from me. But in one of my better thank you cards, like you said, you thank them because it's not just a thank you, but you're putting yourself in that moment of, if it's in a wedding, if it's a job interview, if it's you quit your job that day.
You hit the nail on the head. I never thought of it that way. But I am. And if I have 5 people a day, do you know how many different roles and neat situations? I mean, can you imagine? Well, I mean, listen, here's my journey. And I mean, whether we tag, Instagram, Ryan _ the source, you'll see not only all the quality of work, but you'll see all the weddings.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, I was invited to 8 customer weddings. Now, how awesome is that? Every time I go there, I get to have some drinks, dance, party, and watch people freaking celebrate. You cry because people give these sentimental speeches. You see people get nervous one time after another. You see people screw them up because they're tanked. You see all kind of follies and funnies and things like that. But no, I'm not here bragging by any stretch of the means. It's just I'm blessed to have that industry, and that's just kind of what follows with it. And then you play Dr. Phil sometimes, because then you have people come in and say, listen, I try to run a tight ship. I mean this. You can never really prospect anybody. I don't ever really worry about prospecting anybody. When people walk in, they have a request, they need my help, period. They're there for something. It is my job to do the best I can to navigate them through the help. People come in and say, listen, and I try to have as healthy of clients just as much as they want a healthy representative and do the work. I need a guy I can trust. I need a guy that, right? I want my customers to have a relationship with me. Sure, you can come in real quick, but I'd like to see you in a year. I'd like to see you in 2 or 3 or 4 more years. And after that, okay? But sometimes I end on the other end of the spectrum and say, listen, this is terrible. We've been married for 30 years. My kid's 21, 26, and 28. And I'm in the middle of selling the house. whether it was another woman, another man, whether there were some challenges, illness. I hear it all. That's like the Dr. Phil side of the business.
Mm-hmm.
You're not there thinking about making $300, making $1,000, making whatever. You're there to try to get through the situation, and then you do the work. And if you do the work right and you do the work fair, like any other business, you should be profitable. Doesn't have to be a lot, something.
And that's kind of with my logic with a lot of like of the suits, because I've talked to people all over the country that I've kind of with my little weird circles, and I've talked to clothiers who have openly said to me, like, I am not I did charge as high as I can, and then they would give me their logic. Or like for me, I am probably one of the most affordable, if not me trying to be the most affordable, because for me it's about the value. And if you see how much I care and how much I'm putting into it, and the work and the learning and the training, and it's like when you light that wick and you just start going into it, people are like, wow, Kevin, like, you're so passionate about it. When people are a lot more perceptive, I think, than they give themselves credit for. And when they see you putting that vibe and that energy into it, I'm a lot more cool with charging a lot less, because, and this is just for myself, because I want you to see that I'm trying to make you really happy and I'm trying really hard. And if it's more affordable, I don't want this to be a one-off. I don't want you to only buy one or two things because it's really expensive and only wear it once or twice a year or for one occasion. I want you to come back and maybe buy something else. If it's a shirt, a jacket, if it's the first time it was a suit, because you liked what I did, it was a value you can afford, and now you want to try something else.
Your conversation goes two ways. I'll use the first top one. It takes a while, well, for me personally, sometimes, and whether it's in the nature of the human, the mind, or the heart, or the feel, a lot of people sometimes don't really, I don't mean give away stuff, but people know, if you're running a business, you know your margins, you know where you need to be, and you understand your business. But right, you can't help it. Sometimes you go a different way, and it may not have been as profitable, or the margins traditional that you may see. But right, where's that different connection between being true to yourself and saying, listen, I spent 10 years in India. I've made fabric with my 2 feet, blindfolded. I deserve to charge $2,500 per suit. You're right about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think people should always develop a confidence. It's not about being an asshole or being firm, but just being prideful of knowing the service and the work that you get. But what's funny is there always this little human thing that just kind of kicks in, right? Whether it's a friend or a family. And you admit, right? Even like the conversation you had earlier, where you said, you know what, I'll do it under 1,000. I'll do it under 1,000. This is the second path to the conversation. Aside from being prideful and being firm at pricing and branding ourselves, like at Tiffany, right? Tiffany can sell something for 12 grand. I could do the same look for 1,800. Do it all the time. What's the difference between people not stopping and saying, wait a minute, I might have to take an extra 2-3 days and see a guy like him to save me $11,000.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if the money's expendable or not. If you had 20 grand, if 2 people had 20 grand in the bank, if you knew you could save 11 grand, most people would do it. So what's the difference between people making the effort and not? Branching off to the second part of your conversation, there's something in us that just makes a deal, right? Doesn't matter. At some point in time, you just do it, right? It's in your blood. It's in your nature. You've talked to them about it. You brought it up. They know your goods. They know your services, but you're going to do something nice. And eventually you just make the deal. You might be used to charging $1,200, whether it's your boy or not, $795 for him. You know what I mean? But it's out there, right? The work is out there. You did it. It's on somebody else new. And sometimes that's priceless to save to not do it for, you know what I mean? Sometimes that's priceless in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, it's you not only thanking for the business and the support, like I said, my first lady client, and one of my biggest priorities in doing this was I wanted to make sure that I was going to be selling to women because well, I think women have a little bit more creative freedom than guys do. Either that or just a lot of guys are a lot more conservative in their ways. But a lot of women are a lot more different body types. And if they feel whatever their confidence is, or maybe they've had a health issue, if you want it, I think you should have that option as long as, you understand like what the technical aspect is. If it's a body measurement, how a waist is measured, how a bust is measured, and because this is the culture that we live in nowadays, but it's also the craft and everything, and making sure that at all times you are that utmost professional, and making sure that everyone knows kind of what you're getting at, like what your goal is and why things are done in a certain way that they are. So, but like I said, I'm over the moon that one of my first customers actually was a lady, and you talk about creative freedom. I've been doing a lot of media stuff, so I'm sorry if I said it already earlier, but I said, hey, because we're under quarantine, I said, we'll do a virtual consult. I've done a few. Pick your fabric, pick your liner. I'll worry about trying to do the rest reasonably. She said, you know what? You have great taste. I really like your style. You do it. What? She's like, you design it and surprise me. I'm like, this is your money. You're sure? Like 4 times I asked. Maybe I may have even asked in French. And I was like, she doesn't speak French, she speaks Spanish, but they're close enough. But there's that creative freedom there, and that's the trust that I'm not saying I want to do that for everybody, because even, she could have called me at 2:00 in the morning and I would have been up designing. But that's that relationship. And especially in businesses like this, because Ryan is a family guy, and if one day like a little one ever wanted to inherit it kind of in a different way than maybe you did, same family tradition of the industry, but now it's potentially a family business, and who knows.
You have opportunity to build a legacy out of it.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes, I mean, I didn't wrap that around my head until about 2 years ago. I said, wait a minute, a lot of people, whether they try to work for an opportunity or get handed one, like, right, like this is the part now where, you try to live by all the cool Instagram quotes, from all the great leaders, but so it's true. I mean, not to cut you off, buddy, but it's an opportunity to build a legacy. And
And you won't feel old until after the people that you've sold to, their kids come to you for engagement rings.
Right.
Then the probability goes way up.
Great. I'm already. Yeah, good deal.
Yeah, I'm trying to be polite about it. We'll put you into a really nice Glen plaid. That way all the gray will kind of just blend together, and it will just frame your face nicely, and you won't really see any of it.
Listen, I'm ready for part 2, and I think next time I'm just going to go no hat, okay? But I am happy that I did get Presidio Hand. It's a wonderful Mexican restaurant out here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a little mom and pop store. They do great. And a matter of fact, real quick, you know how I got this hat?
What's up?
They don't sell them there. You have to be an employee. You have to be family, and you have to work there. But we talked about kindness, did we not?
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, hey, listen, I really love those hats. I'm a little small business owner in town, and a lot of people, and I'd love to represent it. I said, I'd love to buy one off of you. How much can I buy one? And the guy said, hold on, let me check. And I don't hear from him for a half hour. My wife and I are getting ready to leave. And I look in the back, someone whistled at me, right? And I look in the back, and it's the guy, and he hauls me over, and he handed it to me. I tried to give him a $20 bill. He said, no. So I thought it was cool, and I feel cool because I'm the only guy in town that has it. I'm a hat guy.
Hey, and much.
That's my style.
Completely derailed my train of thought. Damn.
Good.
I think I was gonna say, just like your future KQ suit, you are one of a kind, especially with that hat. So we made it all the more unique. We're probably going to be winding this down anyway, folks. This was Ryan Riek. We're talking diamonds and jewelry, heirlooms. Ryan, if folks wanted,
Will you give a quick shout out to the store?
Yeah. If folks want to, either consultation or questions or inquiries on repairs, new, anything else, what are some of the best ways to get in touch with you and check out some of your work?
Yeah, no, thanks again, Kevin. And I really didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to just run by. Um, in brief, 23-year-old business out of Phoenix, Arizona, can pretty much take care of any of your diamond bridal jewelry needs. Um, Out of state business, in state business. I'm not sure if you have any listeners in Phoenix, but maybe they've been in the store as well. So, www.jewelryreplacementsource.com. And then once you kind of connect there, you'll see a bunch of rest of my social sites and things like that. Ryan underscore the source, where all you see beautiful custom creation jobs, make all the good connections. You'll see awesome customers, and I'm even like TikToking now. So we'll see where this goes. Yeah.
Nice. Hey, no worries. I'm gonna be asking you about a couple watches here in 2 seconds. Well, folks, thank you all so much for dealing with us, for tolerating us, but a phenomenal conversation. We get personal, but that's what's awesome. It's all about relationships. It's about family. It's about kindness and looking good and feeling good all at the same time. So, on behalf of myself and Ryan, thank you all so much. Remember to stay true to you and stay styled. Until next time, take care.